Many thanks for staying with us here on Newsdesk. Now, President Mahama may not be aware of the harsh economic climate in the country because he does not engage in business. Telling Ghanaians the economy is resilient is a far cry from the reality on the ground. Now, that's the position of the flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party, Dr. Papa Kwesi. He contends it's rather Ghanaian businesses that have remained resilient in one of the most toxic business environments in the world. Dr. Indom has been speaking to my colleague Francis Aban in a yet-to-be-aired interview on The Pulse.
The economy has been terrible for business, but Ghanaians have proven resilient. So it's not the economy that's resilient. It's the Ghanaian spirit that in many areas, in spite of, high, very, very, very high levels of taxes, in spite of very high levels of interest rates, utility pricing, and all of those kinds of, in spite of all of that, and especially in spite of the difficulties that government institutions place in the way of business people, Ghanaian people still persist. They still want to be in business. They still want to do business, and they're still investing their monies. Today I've had visits from at least 4 different people who are in business, who are telling their stories of difficulties here and there, but in the end, none of them is wanting to quit. They are all looking for a way so they can ride the wave and hope that at the end of all these difficulties, maybe in a year, 2, 3, or whatever years, something good might happen. So, no, the difficulty has been with the economy. If the president is thinking that something wonderful is happening, maybe he does not know and doesn't understand because he's not a business owner. What he gets at the end of the month does not depend on some customer deciding that I want the goods you're selling or the services that you're selling. So he doesn't know. But those who are in the know, they understand that this is and has been a difficult environment, but there's a resilient spirit. There's a good Ghanaian spirit.
What has government done wrong in handling Ghana's economy?
Well, what has government done right? That should be the question. Okay, because anywhere you look, if I want to get a permit, if I want to get a license to do anything, you name it, a mining concession, wanting to drill for oil and gas, a banking license, anything, get a license for television. Everything comes with a difficulty. Okay, so even that one, there's a problem. Registering a business is a problem. Buying land, there's a problem. And then you get into the environment itself. Whatever you decide to do, somebody has a better idea that let me go to China, to America, to Japan, or somewhere to find something cheaper to come and sell that would be in competition with what is it that you are doing that is employing Ghanaians. So there are difficulties. Inflation is high. Taxes are high. We have a business in all of our businesses. We run a quarry business, we run a manufacturing enterprise, the hotel business. All of them will tell you that their utility costs for electricity and that sort of thing has, in some cases, more than tripled since December. Now, if you run a hotel, you can't go and triple your hotel room prices. You can't. You can't triple the cost of a meal. Okay, so it is a tough environment to be in. But what is it that you're going to do? We can't all give up and go home.
Well, that full interview with the flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party, Dr. Papa Kwesi, airs this afternoon at 3 p.m. on The Pulse with Francis Aban. Do make a date. To some other stories, and indeed, let's return to that very first story we started the bulletin with, and the Auditor-General is recommending the prosecution of Chief Executive of the Tamale Teaching Hospital and other key senior staff for various acts of corruption that threaten the survival of the facility. Now, the report, among other things, speaks of how management of the hospital deliberately circumvented procurement procedures to award supply contracts totaling nearly 500,000 Ghana cedis to 2 companies that did not compete in a tendering process that took place last year. Head of our health desk, Fred Smith, is joining me now in studio with details of that very report. So, Fred, many thanks for joining us. So, what does this report say specifically?
Well, It starts from March last year,
Okay.
when management wanted some gauze rolls and some other items for the dressing of wounds. So they put out the advertised per the public procurement law says they advertised and invited bids from companies that had the capacity to supply. Now, over 30 companies bought the bid forms, participated in the bid process till the end. 2 companies were selected, Investrade and another one. They won the bids. So letters were issued to them. So they were just waiting for the green light to start supplying the items. They had nothing again. All that the auditor said happened was that some 2 different companies, and I'll mention the name of the 2 companies, Haske Limited and Mahasa Limited, they supplied the items. Since they did not participate in the bid process, it makes it illegal under the public procurement law. And they are saying that for supplying, even though I've checked the rate at which they supply to the hospital, is the same rate at which the bid winners presented to the hospital's tendering committee. So they have not, the hospital has not lost anything, but it is the illegality of substituting the eventual winners for people who did not participate. Because if those who actually won the bids decide to take the matter up in court, then the hospital would be forced to pay huge judgment debts, and the auditors are very worried about that. They said that for this to have happened, and I quote for you what the audit report says. It says it indicates management's special interest in the transactions, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a series that we're running on Joy News. In subsequent stories, we're going to tell listeners and viewers who exactly is behind these 2 companies that actually were given the bids. They are staff of the hospital.
These 2 companies?
Exactly. In fact, for one, we've done the full checks, and we know that it's a staff of the hospital, a very senior member of staff at the Tamale Teaching Hospital, and his ex-wife. In fact, the divorce proceedings for them is currently ongoing. They were married at the time this contract was given, but we are told that he went to marry 2 other women.
Okay.
And without the consent of this one. The other one also works in the hospital. The second one works in the hospital. There's a third one who works outside the hospital. Also, it brings into context the conflict of interest situation surrounding this whole deal. The auditors are recommending that sanctions are invoked against these officers, especially the chief executive, under Section 92 of the Public Procurement Law, and under Section 92, the punishment, if you are successfully prosecuted, is imprisonment for up to about 5 years if you're found guilty. And from the findings, it looks like they've been found guilty. It's clear evidence that they sidestepped the procurement procedures.
Has there been any particular reason for their decision to substitute one company for another?
There's no reason, and there shouldn't be any reason. And that's why the auditors are very worried about this situation. I have seen in some other documents that we have, we know that one of the companies that won this bid, they've not complained at all. They were not given the award, they were not complained. But in another contract, they won something very huge, a huge contract, which compensates for this contract that they lost.
Oh.
And so it makes it comfortable for them. But that wasn't illegal, except that the award that was given them was also outside the bounds.
Interesting.
That the public procurement law prescribes.
So apparently,
yeah,
go ahead.
So there are 2 other series that are going to run tomorrow and the day after. We will get details of all of this.
So clearly a lot more happening at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. I quite clearly remember not too long ago there were some issues with their decision to outsource laboratory services as well. That's the same facility, right?
It's the same facility, and I'm told from our investigations at the hospital, many staff members are unhappy about life at the facility and want to resign, want to be transferred, except that management are unwilling to grant them the transfer. Remember, if you resign, then it means it will be difficult to find a job in the public sector. So they are working, but not out of their will.
I see. Interesting. Fred Smith, many thanks for that update. And that was the head of our health desk here at Joy News, Fred Smith, bringing us details of that very report by the Auditor-General that is recommending the prosecution of the Chief Executive Officer for the Tamale Teaching Hospital, as well as some other key senior staff of the facility over alleged corruption. We'll be keeping our eyes on this, and just like he mentioned, we have two more parts of this very series that will be running on Tuesday and on Wednesday. Do stay with us here on Joy News. But time now for a break. When we come back, Emmanuel Abojiri brings us updates in the world of business. Stay on.